What's up, everybody? Welcome to Super Bowl Sunday. This Sunday is the last Sunday of the NFL season, unfortunately. Jim Bailey and I are back with Cherry Pickers for our final NFL episode of the season, unfortunately. This is a great day if you're a 49ers or Chiefs fan, a great day if you're an NFL fan, and tomorrow we'll start the long off season of kicking around rocks, trying to find something to do on Sundays. So Jim and I are here to try to give you something to watch until the game comes on in about 3 hours. We're going to bring you all kinds of information about the Super Bowl matchup, our best bets, some injury news, things like that. But to start the show off, you want to recap these conference championships games, Jim?
Yeah, a couple pretty good games. Betting wise, didn't go our way. You know, we were on the opposite end of both of them. It's how it goes sometimes. Guess we can start with KC Baltimore. You know, the system like Baltimore in that game. My gut feel was more towards Kansas City. Guess I should have went more with my gut. But either way, I think the story of that game really is the lack of the Baltimore Ravens trying to run the ball. You know, that was the weakness we saw with KC coming in, really, is their run defense. They got an elite pass defense. Baltimore, for whatever reason, even early in the game, I mean, the game was never out of control. They were in the game early. They were like 70% pass on early downs, run versus pass. For whatever reason, they must have saw something that thought they were going to be able to pass the ball better. Excluding the Lamar Jackson runs, just pass play calls versus run play calls. They were 42 passes, 11 runs. And the game was never out of hand. I mean, they were in it to the end. You'd think they would have tried to run the ball. That was just a real head scratcher to me. I'm sure it was for you as well.
I don't know what their game plan was. Were they trying to like fool everybody? Hey, everybody thinks we're going to run the ball, so we're going to pass. I mean, the game was still close, though. I mean, it just came down to a couple of plays, but Baltimore coaching staff, I think, just crap themselves. They they overthought things. They didn't, you know, when you look at both of the games, Detroit did exactly what everybody knew they had to do, and they were an inch away from it working. Even the 49ers knew, hey, they've got to be able to rush the passer. They got to run outside zone runs, and they've got to beat, you know, our pass rush with good blocking. And they did all those things. Even a bum like me knew what they had to do, and they did it, and it worked until it didn't at the end of the game. For Baltimore, they didn't attack Kansas City's weaknesses, and Kansas City's been doing what they do best as of this season and probably last season, is dink and dunk, control the clock, get first downs, burn the clock. You put pressure on Baltimore's offense when they do get the ball. But that good defense that Kansas City has, it held strong. And, I mean, I can't believe this Kansas City team got back to the Super Bowl. As they've played this year, they haven't played like the Chiefs that we've known for the last 4 or 5 seasons. As far as offense goes, their defense has been improved, and it's been quietly one of the best units in the league. But I still am in shock that they were able to get through Buffalo and Baltimore on the road to get to their 4th Super Bowl in 5 years.
Yeah, I guess we shouldn't be shocked. I mean, looking in hindsight, when you got a quarterback that good and a coach that good, they got Kelsey. A lot of it early in Baltimore game was just Mahomes making crazy plays to Kelsey with their chemistry. Kelsey had a ridiculous catch early in the game on a 4th down. I mean, that's just what they do. I was looking at some of Kansas City's game logs last half a year or so. Seems like they're very much having a lot more success offensively early in games. It seems like Reed is doing a really good job this year of scripting plays, which he always does, but it seems like they need it more this year. For their early drives, they have a lot of success. That's what happened last week. They got up on Baltimore early, put the pressure on them. Second half of games, their unders, second half unders in general, both for the game and for their team totals, way down from what they do in the first half. So what I see a lot is Reed is scripting plays, getting their things they want to do early, and then the second half, when it's kind of just breaking down and it's raw, let's move the ball. They just don't quite have it this year. They just don't quite have the weapons. So, yeah, we'll see how good they do against San Francisco today. But, I mean, honestly, we probably shouldn't be too surprised that Kansas City with their pedigree. Here we go again.
Yeah, it's just a testament to how well they're coached, how well their quarterback play is. They haven't. I don't know if they've turned the ball over. I know that
Not much.
Mahomes hasn't had a single turnover worthy play. I mean, in the playoffs, that's everything, almost everything. And if you have a good defense, you don't turn the ball over, you don't put the ball in harm's way, and you continue to grind out first downs, you're going to win the game. I mean, that's just how it goes. It's just plain and simply how it works. So I'm looking here at these drives. Listen to some of these drives: 5 minutes and 45 seconds, 9 minutes and 2 seconds, 5 minutes and 8 seconds, 4 minutes and 17 seconds. They had the ball for, let me see, I think it was 37 minutes and 30 seconds of that game. So Baltimore only had the ball for 22 minutes. That's how you win a game. That's how you can be a not talented offense, but have the ball for almost 40 minutes. You don't give the other team a lot of chances to score. Now, puts a lot of pressure on your defense, but they've got a good defense that held up. And Lamar Jackson, I think, was he trying to win it with his arm? Was he trying to prove everybody wrong? I don't know.
That's what I wonder. Like, even the whole coaching staff, the regime, I mean, they're always so quick to defend Jackson and prop him up. They want to look like they made the right call, which at this point, you can't knock. I mean, the postseason, its success isn't there, but, he's a good quarterback. There's no doubt. But I wonder that, too, or they were trying to, like, prove a point, like we can win in this manner. I mean, they had, like I said, 11 called design runs for the game, 6 to running backs the entire game. Like, and this is Baltimore. They don't do this all year. Like, why did they change so drastically there in the game? It's a real head scratcher. And you love Harbaugh. I've been super positive on Monken, the offensive coordinator, all year. I thought he was a great hire, done a great job all the year, but it seems like they just totally blew it last week.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just really tough to figure it out. I'm sure everybody in Baltimore is saying the same thing. Like, what's going on? What happened here? I think they got out of their own comfort zone, and for whatever reason they did that. If it was to try to catch them off guard, or they saw something on film that they thought they could attack, but it didn't work at all. And you got too good of a coach and too good of a quarterback to kind of try something out in the conference championship game. I mean, it's not going to work. Looking at the previous game, Kansas City played Buffalo. Now, this game was the complete opposite. Buffalo had the ball for 37 minutes, but they didn't turn the ball over. Of course, they didn't turn the ball over. And what Buffalo did do good in that game, I'm talking about this because it's going to lead into the Super Bowl talk later. Let's see. They ran the ball 39 times for almost 200 yards. It looks like they've got 180 yards rushing. So 39 times for about 180 yards. And really, it was more the mistakes that cost Buffalo the game than anything else. I do think that they showed that they were kind of the better team, but you got fumbles. You're punting late in the game when they probably should have kept the ball and kept driving. And I don't know. It just seemed like one of those things where Buffalo just couldn't do anything right this season. They even missed a field goal, and they had turnover on downs late in the fourth quarter. It was just one of those games where Buffalo didn't play well. But you've seen Kansas City win with the ball control. You've seen them without it. The one common theme is they're not making mistakes. They're not turning the ball over. And I think when you do that, you can win games. Now, can you do that for a fourth game in a row against a fourth good team? I don't know. That's yet to be seen. I don't know. Let's talk about that later. But let's move to that 49ers Detroit game. I thought Detroit played an amazing game. I thought that they had an amazing game plan. I thought that they attacked San Francisco right where they needed to. We talked about it. You asked me, what do I think they need to do? I think they need to hit outside runs. I think they need to get pressure on Purdy. And I think they need to block well from the pass rush and attack some of the weak spots that we have in the secondary. And they did all of that. They did everything that they needed to do. They were super, super aggressive like they have been. And people are criticizing Detroit, why didn't you take those field goals? Well, not taking the field goals is what got them there. And I think when you're the head coach of a team that's been that bad, you have nothing to lose. So why not try to throw the knockout punch? And they just dropped a couple passes is really what it came down to.
Yeah, that's no one's really talked about it much, but yeah, man, they had some killer drops in that game. Even that the fourth down, the first one they went for, the analytics, which I'm behind analytics. I get it. I think it makes total sense. The first one they were up 14, at the 30-yard line or so, was like 4th and 3. Decided to go for it. Analytics slightly says go. I don't know. Like you think analytics, but sometimes you got to think the situation, because this is the NFC title game as 7-point underdogs. Not every situation is the same there. And if it was me, I mean, it's tough to say in hindsight, but going up 17 in the third quarter seems like pretty dang good, enticing. I was reading some articles about it, the whole analytics and the decision making around it, and a lot of it is, if you knew for sure that the field goal would be good, you take the points. The analytics would say go ahead and take the points. But I mean, with a field goal like that, would have been like 47 yards.
Yeah.
It's not a sure thing. They don't got a great kicker, So, that was big that they dropped the pass on 4th down. San Francisco drove down and scored with that insane deep pass down the field right after that too. And then Detroit got the ball back first play. Gibbs up the middle, fumble. I mean, that's the swing of the game right there.
Yeah, they saw on film that he had a tendency to fumble the ball, and they were attacking him, and they were trying to get that. Tayshaun Gibson come in and just nailed him, got it punched out at a perfect time. And I'll tell you, that second half from San Francisco, they came out just with nothing to lose, and that's the exact mentality they needed to have. But I'm not a Lions fan. I haven't paid a ton of attention to them, but I guess the third quarter has been a killer for them. So they seem like they're great at pregame strategy, but the in-game stuff might be where they're lacking. It might be what costs this coaching staff, because the third quarter has been a problem for them all year. Well, what happens at halftime? These coordinators make adjustments. So maybe there's a flaw there in, I don't know if it's on the defense or it's on the offense, because they both struggled, but that might be something to look into, next year when we're talking about the Lions. They did keep their coordinator, which everybody is shocked about. They were saying he was going to be Washington's next head coach, and it was just a formality. But I guess there's a lot of people, from the stuff I'm hearing from NFL insiders that I read on Twitter, X, whatever, they're saying that the Washington people that they hired them from the NBA, because these guys built an NBA squad. They're really good at building rosters. And a couple of the guys that were interviewed for the head coach is like, they're talking basketball stuff. I don't want to be a part of that. So they thought the offensive coordinator was leaving. He decided, I guess he sent them a text on the plane ride back that he wasn't going to take the job. And, I think they might have even passed on somebody else because they were waiting for him, and they ended up going with Dan Quinn. But in reality, San Francisco got a couple lucky breaks. They got that, like you said, Lynn Swann type catch is what you described it as a Steelers fan. I didn't think about it like that. But had he not been grazed on his hip as he was falling down, that would have been a touchdown catch. That would have been even crazier. But they ended up scoring anyway. A couple of drop passes. And, in the second half, Steve Wilks made some changes on defense where he had them line up like they were going in zone. But then when the ball was snapped, they switched to man, and Goff was done. He had no answer. Once they switched, he was confused, and they had a couple drops. San Francisco came through.
Yeah, I mean, Detroit looked like world beaters in the first half. They were doing anything they wanted on offense. They were running the exact offense. If you could picture perfect what we're going to do today, I mean, they were doing anything they wanted with their classic run game, with their outside zone, tons of play action. I mean, they look great. Second half, I don't know. It just seemed like momentum. Like once momentum shifted, I think it's a real thing in sports. It's not something you can quantify and put on a spreadsheet, but something about the momentum where once they didn't get that 4th down, had the big play, fumble. I mean, everything just changed right there. San Francisco, though, you got to give them credit. 2 weeks in a row, they had to dig deep to pull out games as big favorites that turned into closer games than they were expecting. Purdy, his scrambling, I know we've talked about it a lot, but last week, a few huge scrambles by him. He's a lot quicker, better runner than he's given credit for. Got to give him credit. I mean, I think it actually could help him in today's scenario where they had to be battle tested now, where they didn't just go out there and blow folks out. They had 2 gut check games and came out on top both times. So I think it could bode well for him today.
Yeah, and as a 49ers fan who has known heartbreak, these kind of things don't go for the 49ers way. In 2021, they beat the Rams twice in the regular season. They were winning in the fourth quarter in that NFC Championship game. Matthew Stafford led the NFL in picks that year, threw an interception right into the hands of one of our corners in the third quarter when we were up. If he would have caught that, they could have grinded more clock. That game would have been over, and he drops it. In the Super Bowl against Baltimore 10, 11 years ago, they were getting ready to run in the game-winning touchdown, snap the ball. The play they had was wide open, but Jim Harbaugh runs and calls a timeout right before the ball snapped. If you ever watch an interview with him, he says his biggest regret when he was with the 49ers is calling that timeout because the play worked. They ended up losing that game. The year before that, they lost to the Giants in an NFC Championship game where the 49ers were winning, got the ball back, and on a punt, they fumbled the punt. Giants got the ball, kicked the field goal. Back when I was a kid in the 90s, they were going for their third Super Bowl in a row in the NFC title game. They were running out the clock against the stinking Giants. Roger Craig fumbles the ball. As they were running the clock, the only thing he had to do was not fumble the ball. He fumbles, and they kick a field goal. There have been a lot of NFC Championship game heartbreaks. They lost another one to Seattle when Harbaugh was there. When on first down, Kaepernick tried a fade route to Crabtree while Richard Sherman was on him on a first down when they were down inside the red zone. So my point is, these kind of things never happen to San Francisco. They usually lose these kind of games. But finally, in these big playoff games, they're getting some breaks. They're probably going to have to get some today, too.
Yeah, I know you always talk about Steelers fans and Buckeyes fans being spoiled, but maybe San Francisco a little spoiled too. There's a lot of franchises that at least could have been in that situation. Right. I feel you, though. Like the Steelers, the same way. When you're not a Steeler fan, like people see the Steelers as like a blessed franchise, but, man, I could count 20 gut-wrenching losses where they could have had multiple more Super Bowls. So I feel your pain there. Today, though, I know we're going to get into it with the system pick and all that, though. KC, San Fran, look at the point spreads, -2. I'm really surprised. I really thought San Francisco was going to be a little bit bigger favorite today. I think if this game would have happened like first round of the playoffs, I think San Francisco would have been like -5 even. I mean, I think they'd have been a good bit more favorite here. San Francisco's kind of had a couple off weeks. Kansas City's kind of played above expectation the last couple of weeks. I think it's kind of swung this line a little bit. I was still surprised. Like the line came out around 2. It's bounced around 3 for a little bit, 1. I was really hoping it would get up to 3 and stay there. Spoiler, I think San Francisco's the play here today. I do. I think so I was hoping it would stay like around 1. Or even go to like Kansas City favored. If you watch SportsCenter today or watch like reading the ESPN articles, they do a poll on who's going to win today. It's overwhelming Kansas City, is it not? I saw one that was like the ESPN experts. It was like 70% of their experts are picking Kansas City today. So why is San Francisco favored by 2? What do you think?
Yeah.
What do you think of that?
I mean, I'm not just saying this to be a homer. That means the sharp money's on San Francisco. I mean,
got to be right.
I saw a TikTok from a professional gambler that said there's been a 7-figure bet put on San Francisco and something like six-figure bets put on San Francisco. So his argument was the everyday Joes like you and I who don't have that kind of money have got their money on Kansas City. 71% of the money line bets are on Kansas City and over 60% of the spread bets are on Kansas City.
Yeah.
Everybody's looking at what Kansas City has done recently, of being a great team. And they're looking at the last game that these two played, which was last season. But this was a long time ago. They played in the middle of last season. It's, if you're looking at months, calendar months, it's been 13, 14 months, 15 months. But it seems like 5 years ago because Jimmy G was the quarterback that day. And not only that, San Francisco went through a ton of injuries the prior weeks to that. I think they played Atlanta a couple weeks prior to that with 11 starters out. 11 starters or guys who play major minutes were out. That's half of your team. So that wasn't the same 49ers team that had played the rest of the year. And Kansas City did come in after a big loss in the regular season to Buffalo, and they won that game. Jimmy G threw an interception when we were at like the 5-yard line before halftime, and I think he even got hurt in that game. So that was not the same team then that what played the rest of the season or this team now. Matchup wise, let's start with, we'll just go right into it. And before we get to our picks, we're going to talk about the Browns and Steelers coaching changes, but we can break down this game now. As far as injuries go, there's a big one that came out of Kansas City the other day where they have a starting offensive lineman who's out, Joe Thuney. He's out. Having a starting offensive lineman go down the week of this Super Bowl, that's really big. He is he's a starting guard for them, and he's the 10th ranked guard in the NFL. You got a top 10 guard in the NFL going down. That's huge. The 49ers have to take advantage of that and provide some kind of pressure up the middle today. Javon Hargrave, Javon Kinlaw, Eric Armstead, those interior defensive guys have got to bring some pressure and take advantage of that to get Mahomes out of sorts, to get him out of the pocket, where hopefully Bosa and Chase Young, if he decides to play today, depending on what kind of effort he gives, maybe they could bring him down. But that's the first thing that I noticed looking at this matchup. 49ers are pretty healthy. The guys who were out were guys who were already out, and everybody else is in. Tell me what you see.
Chiefs had another one, defensive lineman Amenahu, key cog for them. He tore his ACL, I believe. He's definitely out today, and he got hurt last week, so they can't afford to lose interior defenders against the San Fran run D. So I thought that was a positive for the Niners too. I saw some of that with the Chase Young or something about his effort. What was that all about? I just briefly heard someone say something about it. Was it just something like a play last week, or is this like an ongoing thing?
Right. Yeah, it's it's something they have to take advantage of. And you're right. I forgot about Charles Omenihu. That one happened, I think, it happened during the AFC Championship game that he got hurt, and he played for the 49ers in their Super Bowl against the Chiefs. He's a good run stuffer, and they are not good at stuffing the run as it is. So they're getting probably their best or second best run defender there, and their front seven out. 49ers got to pound the ball like it's 1990.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to make the same mistake the Baltimore did. I mean, you saw the stats that Buffalo had. Like, how did Baltimore see the matchup? I really just don't get it. Not to harp on it, but how did they not see the game plan was to run the ball? I would be shocked if Shanahan comes even close to that kind of pass percentage today.
Yeah, the 49ers have obviously Christian McCaffrey, and they're probably going to use him a lot. But they also have two other good running backs. One of them is a young kid named Jordan Mason, and he's a battering ram. I'd love to see him get a mix in here to just kind of wear that defense down, crack some skulls in that linebacker core. Just wear them out. McCaffrey has better vision than anybody in the league, really, if you ask me. His vision is amazing. He's not the athlete that Nick Chubb is, but I'm telling you, when you watch him run, he will find a crack and turn that crack between two of his blockers and turn it into 12 yards when there shouldn't be any room there at all. If you ever get a chance to watch that spider cam or that crane cam of any of his runs, you'll see, like, how in the world did he get any yards out of this play? It's because of his vision. But if they're going to grind the ball, I hope they give Jordan Mason some runs. And I hope Purdy just takes off. I hope that they've got – I don't want to see many design plays for him running, but he needs to – if there's nothing open, take off, man.
Seems like he does a good job at that, feeling the pressure and knowing when to run. He's not the fastest guy in the world, but he's not slow either. His legs were a big difference last week. There were multiple plays where big third downs, they needed something, and he scrambled, got big yardage. It's certainly an asset of his to being a good quarterback.
Yeah, he was graded as the number one running quarterback in the NFL this year by Pro Football Focus. And that was not based on, is he the best runner in the NFL? No, just based on the runs that he did have. He got out of a lot of sacks, and he got some extra yards where it didn't look like there were any. I think he needs to take advantage of that today. So the 49ers offensive line, we've talked about that all postseason. It's been a problem for them. It's been their weak point, and it dang near cost them against Detroit. But they are a good run blocking crew. So they've got to be able to just give him a little bit of time. That defensive front for the Chiefs is kind of basically Chris Jones and some other guys.
Yeah, Karlaftis is decent. I mean, he's first-round pick. He's got a high pedigree. Hasn't had a huge production, but he had a big play last week. He's had a big playoff, really. So, yeah, we've talked about the San Fran O-line a bunch, where it's kind of Trent Williams and 4 random guys that you don't know anything about them. Pretty good run blocking unit. I mean, they run the ball well all year. I fully expect Shanahan to run. You know, I know you love Jordan Mason. You talk about him a lot, but I'd be shocked if he gets more than a token touch. You know, it's going to be just CMC all day. It was like that in the regular season. So now that we're in the Super Bowl, I mean, I'm sure it's going to be CMC getting crap ton of touches. I don't think there's any doubt.
Yeah, and you can't blame him. But, you know, also the other key guy here is obviously Debo. He's the one that makes the hearts drop into your stomach of defenders. When he's in motion, you have to take account for him. And, yeah, their offense is based off of him. And we talked about this the last game where he was saying he was hurt, and he came out of that game against Green Bay, and they went and did x-rays. There's nothing wrong with him. He needed to suck it up. And he did that in that Detroit game. And he's got to do it today. I mean, if you're in the Super Bowl and you got a stinger, you got to play through it. But he's the kind of guy that can kill you on the outside there. They're just so well coached on defense. Spagnuolo, I think he's probably had his best year as a coach, if you ask me.
He's definitely a high-level coordinator. It goes a lot with their talent level that they're back here again. I think they're a very well-coached team on both sides of the ball. There's no doubt about that. The thing we haven't really talked about on the San Fran side is Shanahan and his legacy really on the line, where he's gotten to the highest level of coaching. He's well-regarded universally, hasn't been able to get over the hump, probably has his best team that he's had right here today. So what's your thoughts on that? Andy Reid, crafty veteran, been around forever, going against Shanahan. What do you think of that matchup?
I mean, it's a scary matchup, man. When you're going up against Andy Reid, you got to be nervous. He's one of the greatest coaches the league has ever seen. He's taken 2 franchises to a Super Bowl. What is this? This is his 5th Super Bowl appearance overall. He took the Eagles back in the early 2000s. He's a great mind. He's a great football mind. He's a great he's a great offensive mind, really. And he's the kind of guy that can neutralize your best things on defense. He's had an extra week to prepare. I'm sure everybody knows about the bye week Andy Reid stat, where he's some ungodly number after a bye. That he plays, he's so prepared, and he picks things apart so well. I mean, I think it's a huge coaching advantage for the Chiefs when you're talking about Reid versus Steve Wilks. Now, Reid versus Shanahan, I just kind of think of them as different guys. Shanahan is, I don't know. He doesn't seem to really plan for the opponent as much as he plans for getting the best out of what he's got. You with me on that? You feel that way?
Yeah, I mean, you would know better than I do. Of course, you're 49ers, watch them every single game, every single week. So I can see where you're coming from. I definitely think Reid on the opposite. I would agree that he's much more scheme-based, opponent to opponent. They do a great job of figuring out the weakness of the opponent, kind of like the Belichick thought school of, we're going to take away what you do best. We're going to figure out what your weaknesses are, and that's what we're going to attack. I thought they did a good job last week with Baltimore. Baltimore actually went zone heavy on D, which was kind of surprising as well with McDonald, defensive coordinator, where Kansas City's just great against zone. The Kelsey picking apart the zone, the chemistry with Mahomes, it's just hard to stop them in just pure zone. And the way they move Kelsey around with the motions to always get a clean release. I mean, you can't say enough about Reid and what he's done on the offensive side of the ball. So, I love Shanahan. I've been his biggest fan. I think I probably like him even more than you do. I think he's just outstanding. Like, if I could pick an offensive coordinator for my favorite team, I mean, he's got to be easily top 3. I mean, he might be the best. I think he's that good. But overall, I mean, it's hard to find a huge coaching advantage on San Francisco side when you're going against Reid.
Yeah, I mean, so you're talking about Kyle Shanahan versus Steve Spagnuolo, the best defensive coordinator in the NFL this year, in my opinion, versus a guy that's a really brilliant offensive mind. I have to think that he's going to be attacking that offensive line, that right side of the offensive line, that he's going to be trying to get pressure on. Their number one job is going to be, I don't know, pressure on Purdy and clogging up the middle of the field, the middle of that line, so that they're not getting McCaffrey. He's getting those extra bursts, a 32-yard run here, a 12-yard run there, things like that. I'm sure that he's probably thinking if we can get pressure on Purdy, slow McCaffrey down, and then when they're on offense, I already know exactly what Reed's going to do. He's going to dink and dunk just like he did last week, because the 49ers and the Ravens are both good run teams. You don't want them on the field. You want to keep them off the field. You want to keep your defense fresh. So I'd imagine that's the kind of game plan that they're going to have. I don't know what San Francisco is going to do on defense. They do like to play soft zone, which I hate, and which Patrick Mahomes will absolutely shred if he gets a chance.
Yeah, Kansas City's a lot more run heavy this year. I mean, they try to get to establish the run more than they have in years past. They really lean on Pacheco, getting the run game going, doing play action. Looking some stats, San Francisco's run D much better between the tackles. What you were saying last week with the outside stretch stuff, Detroit could have success. They did. Outside the tackles, San Francisco is one of the worst run Ds in the league, really. EPA per play, they were like 29th on outside run plays. Between the tackles, they're rock solid. So I think Kansas City will see these. They're well coached. They're going to try to attack, see what Detroit did well, try to get Pacheco outside, and underneath to Kelce. If they're going to sit in zone, I mean, the chemistry between Mahomes and Kelce, when he knows just where to sit down in the zone and there's the ball before he even turns around, it's just otherworldly, really. They do have maybe the best coverage linebacker in the NFL, though, with Warner. I'm sure he's going to see a lot of Kelce, try to get the upper hand there. So they might have a little bit of a trump card, but that'll be a good one to watch, the matchup between those two.
Yeah, Fred Warner. Yeah, he's an amazing linebacker. Might be the best linebacker in the NFL, and he's got a good one paired next to him, and Drake Greenlaw. They're both good coverage linebackers, but Warner more so. I guess the defense. That's their strength in the defense is there, and then the defensive ends are both really good. Chase Young, I'm sure everybody's seen the clip going around of his effort on that Detroit run. They were inside, I think, the 10-yard line, 15-yard line. Their running back runs through, a couple of holes, makes some good moves, and Chase Young is just kind of jogging over towards him, and he kind of runs right in front of Chase Young. He just puts his hand out and kind of just taps him as he runs into the end zone. And they said that was his problem in Washington, that he didn't always give 100% effort. And I guess we're seeing it now because he hasn't made as much of an impact as I hoped he would. He's doing better than what we had there before. We gave up a third-round pick for him. And if he does leave in free agency, we get a third-round pick back. So it doesn't hurt us, really. But I was hoping for a lot more from that guy, and they're going to need it today.
Yeah, I mean, he was outstanding at Ohio State, just total beast, and was picked, I think, second by Washington, won Rookie of the Year, even though his stats in his rookie year weren't all that great. I mean, they were solid where he won the Rookie of the Year. And then I think he tore his ACL, had a severe injury, and really just never quite bounced back to what he was expected to be. So Washington kind of gave up on him. And the stats I was reading about the outside zone, the outside runs against them since they've picked up Young, it seems like it hasn't helped even against the run with Young. I didn't see the play you were talking about with the effort, but I did read some of the articles that people were saying that. So I don't know. I never seen that. Ohio State, big Buckeye fan, watch all their games. I mean, he was just a total beast. You never seen anything less than 100% effort. So kind of surprising for a guy like that.
Yeah, it was pretty pathetic and pretty aggravating. But I was listening to, some guys who broke down film and said he had a good game outside of that. But hey, you're in a conference championship game. Every play matters, Who knows if he makes a tackle there? Maybe they don't get in and it's not as close as it was. But so really the 49ers, they have to the the middle of the field there, they have to get to Kelce and they have to take him out of the game. Now, Rashee Rice, I'm positive that Andy Reid is going to have him trying to take advantage of the weak spots on that 49ers secondary. And that's coming from the third corner, the slot corner, and then the safeties, one of the safeties, because we lost Hufanga this year. And then Jair Brown came in as a rookie and played well. But Shanahan he didn't play at all versus Green Bay. And he started getting some flack for that, from the public. Like, hey, why are you not playing Jair Brown? He had a great year. You're putting in Logan Ryan, who you picked up off the street. Yeah, he's a veteran who's been around for a long time. But, maybe if Jair Brown plays, we don't get many of these, these big plays from Green Bay like they got. Well, Brown played in that Detroit game, and he didn't do any better. So I think that the coaches know what they're doing. They didn't want to throw a rookie back there, so they got Logan Ryan back there. He's been playing okay, but neither one of them have been lighting things up. And against a kid like Rice, that could really make a difference.
Yeah, I think Hufanga was a big part of the outside run defense being weak as well, because his skills really box in the box and being a good run stopper. So, yeah, I mean, it's hard to replace a guy like that. We'll see. I don't know if Kansas City has the depth. I like Rice a lot, but outside of him, and, they got Scantling, who's kind of just a one-trick pony, go deep. It's really just Kelce, man. I mean, if they can figure out a way to limit Kelce somehow, that's the biggest thing. But it's just much easier said than done.
Jerick McKinnon plays for the Chiefs as well, and he used to play for the 49ers, and he knows that Kyle Shanahan offense. He's going to play today. I'm sure they were picking his brain as well. But I don't know how much that matters at this point, considering the teams have played each other, and Kyle Shanahan's been all over the news. I don't know how – it's kind of amazing that his offense still has gaping wide open spots where these receivers run with everybody trying to mimic his offense. How many guys from his coaching tree are head coaches now? It's crazy. Sean McVay has won a Super Bowl. That was a guy that learned under Kyle Shanahan. Mike McDaniel, he coaches the Dolphins, has an amazing offense, learned under Kyle Shanahan. Green Bay head coach, learned under Kyle Shanahan. And he's still able to it's just a wonder that the whole league doesn't have, the blueprint on how to beat this offense.
Yeah, you could try. The problem is they got so many good players.
Right.
You got McCaffrey and Ayuk and Debo and Kittle. I mean, it's just so hard to pick your poison. I was reading today, some sharps, their best bet are liking a lot Ayuk under his totals with receptions and yards. Reasoning being the Kansas City cornerbacks that are going to be on him are more bigger, physical, might have a tougher time for Ayuk, and it's really just more pro Debo and Kittle. It seems like for whatever reason they were thinking it's going to be more pro there. So I don't know if you're looking at making a prop bet. I think it was like Ayuk's reception was like 4.5. They're saying under that was a pretty good play, so worth looking at.
Yeah, that could be. And there's a guy that doesn't get a lot of press from the 49ers, Juwan Jennings. He's our wide receiver 3. And in each game, he's come up with some big catches that kept drives alive. Against Detroit last week, he's the one that dove up and made a one-handed catch behind his back. The week before that, it was a third and really long against Green Bay, or Purdy threw the ball, and he threw it 3 feet above his head, and he dove up in the air, caught the ball. He got nailed, still came down with it and got the first down. So if the Sharps are saying that Ayuk's going to be taken out of it, obviously Debo is going to get a ton of attention. Maybe Juwan Jennings is something to look at in the prop bets. I don't know what it is. I think he's only had 1 catch in each game, but he could be somebody they look towards because he is a really, really solid wide receiver 3. So that'd be something to look forward to. And Kittle, he hasn't had a big game yet. And I don't know what the Kansas City defense is like against tight ends. I don't know what the matchup is like, but don't you think Kittle's got to be getting involved here?
Yeah, it seems like Kittle, I don't know if it's with Purdy, but he just hasn't exploded often. It's like when he does get a play, he's always capable of making a big play. He's great with the ball in his hands for a tight end, especially after the catch. But there's games you watch him sometimes, and he's like invisible at times where it seems like he should be a bigger part of the offense more often. He can go off at any time. I mean, he's one of the most talented guys in the league. So You'd think they would try to go to him more, but I don't know either. Kansas City's defense against tight ends, I'm not sure, but yeah, I like Jennings a lot. He is underrated for a third wide receiver. They don't go to him much, but it seems like when they do, he comes through for them.
Yeah, so I'm looking at the PFF matchups right now. For the tight end matchups, it does show that Kittle has a big advantage over Nick Bolton, a 33% advantage one-on-one there. But it also shows Kelce has a big advantage over Dre Greenlaw, 36% advantage. So maybe we're going to see a lot from both tight ends. As far as the wide receivers go, at least in these metrics here used by Pro Football Focus, they grade every play from every player all season long. It says Brandon Ayuk has a really good matchup against Kansas City's defenders. He's the number one ranked wide receiver for both teams. And then there's Rashee Rice after that. It looks like Jauan Jennings has a poor matchup as well as Justin Watson and Marcus Valdez-Scantling. So Rice and Ayuk are both have really good. And Debo has a little bit of a either above average matchup there. In the offensive and defensive line matchups, as expected, the 49ers pass blocking does not look like it's going to have a great job or a great time. But it looks like Kansas City's pass blocking unit is going to be much worse off. It shows that they are at negative 61%. So in other words, it looks like the 49ers, if both teams were even against each other, they'd both be at 100%, and they're at minus 61%. 49ers are at minus 15. And then in the run blocking aspect, it looks pretty even. Kansas City's offensive line versus the San Francisco defensive line, there's a 0% advantage for either team. But as far as the run blocking goes, San Francisco has 31% advantage over KC. So these matchups do seem to favor the 49ers overall. But I just can't get out of here without thinking this isn't going to be a close game. Quarterback, you have to go with Mahomes. Overall offense, you probably have to go with the 49ers. Overall defense, you got to go with the Chiefs. Special teams, it's not close. It's Kansas City.
Yeah, and overall defense. I mean, it's a question. If you go by the playoff games, San Francisco defense has been a big letdown. Season long, metric wise, I mean, it's pretty close. If you ask the random football fan who has a better defense, they're all going to say San Francisco. Kansas City's defense, we talk about it a lot. They're very underrated. It's a much better run defense than they've had the last few years. It's a big part of why they're here. Their defense is much improved. Not surprised, though, to see the San Fran run game having a big success advantage over KC. They're going to be able to run the ball, in my opinion. I think they're going to run. They're going to run often. They're not going to make the Baltimore mistake. They're going to be able to run the ball. Kansas City's offensive line also is not as good as usual. They lost some guys from a few years ago that were key guys. They're not a solid pass block unit. They're average maybe, but they can be beat. A lot of their success comes from Mahomes' ability to avoid sacks. I mean, he's one of the best in league history of avoiding sacks. His raw sack numbers aren't that great. He still gets sacked a good bit, but like avoiding the initial rush and getting out of there and moving out of the pocket, avoiding that initial rush. And he's one of the best at just taking his drop, immediately get the ball out, hitting the ball on rhythm. He's one of the best in league history of avoiding the sacks. So that's where a lot of their success comes from with pass blocking, because they're raw pass blockers. They're really not good. Losing Tooney is not good at all. So hoping Bosa and company can get after him today.
Yeah, so I'm looking at, speaking of that Chiefs offensive line, the guy that's replacing Joe Tooney is Nick Allegretti, 6'4", 310-pound guard / center. So he's just a kind of a backup. He was selected in the 7th round in 2019. So before the playoffs, he played 76 total snaps in the regular season. And he had a grade of 64.8 on those snaps. So he's not very good. So looking at the matchups, he'll be lined up right over Javon Hargrave and Chase Young. So Chase Young, of course, will be on the outside with the left tackle, but he's going to go up against Javon Hargrave, who has a 73.1 grade, and he's ranked 24th overall out of 130 defensive interior linemen. So that's got to be where San Francisco's got to be attacking that kid, going right at him. Now, they have a great center, Creed Humphrey. He's the 4th best center in the league. And their other guard, Smith, he's a great guard too. But you talk both tackles and that left guard, they're all below average. And in fact, the tackles are ranked 61st and 73rd out of 81.
Yeah, they're not a good offensive line. I love Humphrey. He's definitely one of the best. It hurts my heart a little bit as a Steeler fan. The Steelers were supposedly real high on him, had a chance to take him in the second round, passed on him, and he immediately turned into like one of the best centers in the league. He's the real deal.
Yeah, so that's where the San Francisco's got to take their advantage on defense. If you look at the back end there of the 49ers defense, their best secondary guy is Javarius Ward, and he's lined up on the left side there, so it'll be on the right wide receiver there, Valdez-Scantling. I don't think that he's going to have much to do with things. It's going to have to be Rashee Rice, and when they go in their nickel defense, he's got Leominor Lenore is who's going to match up against him. They could be attacking the 49ers there.
Yeah, it seems like the starting corners are pretty good for San Fran, but when I see they go into nickel dime situations, it seems like their depth, like you were mentioning the third with Brown, seems like those guys can be had a little bit.
Yeah, and on the other side of the ball, it's all about Jones on that defensive line for the Chiefs there. Chris Jones, he's one of the best guys that there is on the interior. He's ranked 6th overall out of 130 guys. And John Feliciano and Colton McKivitz are going to have their hands full with that guy today. And a fun fact, Colton McKivitz, starting right tackle for the 49ers, he's from Union Local, and Union Local plays in the OVAC with a lot of local teams here, Wells Boys, Liverpool, Beaver Local. So he is a local guy that's got a connection here to YSN because there are a lot of OVAC schools in YSN, including Union Local. So a fun fact there. So before we go to our best bets and picks for today, why don't we touch real quick on the Browns and Steelers? They both hired offensive coordinators. Let's start with the Steelers, one that you and I both like, and a guy that we talked about a lot the last couple of years, Arthur Smith. While things didn't work out for him in Atlanta, we do think the guy's got a pretty bright mind offensively. He does some real creative things. And thinking about the Steelers and how they like to run the ball, and they kind of they want their identity to come through the run, he seems like a real perfect hire.
About the least surprising hire they could have had, really. Like, it fits the bill with what they want to do, want to run the ball. Not a sexy hire. I know a lot of Steeler fans aren't too crazy about it, but for what they want to do and for what they got with Pickett at quarterback, I think it's a pretty solid hire. You look at what Smith did with Tennessee, with Tannehill, his stats were off the charts compared to what he's done since and even what he did before. They had 2 years together with Tannehill, and he had 55 touchdowns and 13 interceptions for Ryan Tannehill in 2 years. You know, the yards per attempt were real high. So he's kind of known for running the ball, pounding the ball. But when you're able to run the ball successfully, do play action, go deep, I think it's a good fit. I mean, probably could have been some sexier hires out there. But as far as safe, solid, they wanted someone with experience. It's been around. They didn't want to kind of wing it with someone else with where they are with their franchise. So I think they couldn't have really done a whole lot better with Smith.
Yeah, I don't think so either. He's creative in the running game. And he did lead the Tennessee Titans offense when they went to the AFC Championship game 4 seasons ago, when that Titans team really, really overachieved. So it'll be interesting to see how they do with him. I like the hire there. I think that he's going to be kind of the mix of what that Steelers franchise likes and what they kind of need. He does love to run the ball, but he does think outside the box. And that plain, very predictable offense that they've had the last few years shouldn't be the case now.
Can't be worse. Can't be worse than what they had before with offense coordinator. So, yeah, I was surprised looking at their stats they had with Tennessee when he was there. Everybody just remembers the years in Atlanta, but being a head coach isn't quite the same as being the offensive coordinator, and the talent matters. I mean, what did they really have in Atlanta? They had some nice pieces, but didn't have a good quarterback situation. So I don't know. There's talks of maybe bringing in Tannehill as quarterback too, to either compete with Pickett, be the backup or whatever, since they have that relationship. So we'll see.
Yeah, and then we go to the Browns. They hired a guy that longtime Browns fans should be familiar with, He actually played for the Browns for a while. He also played for the 49ers. He was most recently the offensive coordinator in Buffalo. And in my opinion, he was kind of a scapegoat. They hired Ken Dorsey in to take over the play calling duties there.
Yeah, the word was a lot of it. The clash with McDermott was Dorsey wanted to be more wide open, run spread, pass the ball more. McDermott kind of overruled him. Like, look, we want to go more heavy set and run the ball. As you've seen when that Chiefs playoff game, the stats you recited there had 200 yards rushing or whatever it was. Like Buffalo's not known to do that, but since they've gotten rid of Dorsey and went with Brady, they've done a lot more running the ball. We'll see with Cleveland. It's always the thing where the head coach Stefanski is the de facto play caller, offense coordinator. So I haven't heard anything about him giving up play calling to Dorsey. So it's always you always wonder like how much when you have a situation with like an Andy Reid, Eric Bieniemy situation, like how much of it is one versus the other. You on mute.
If there is a great offensive mind at the head coaching spot, you have to wonder how much does the offensive coordinator really have to do with anything. And the same thing with the defensive side of the ball. And like we said with Sean McDermott, he wants to protect his defense because he's known as a defensive guy. So he wants to run the ball, grind the clock. And Ken Dorsey wanted to throw the ball more because he's got an amazing guy at quarterback. And so there just was a difference in philosophy. Joe Brady was fired when he was down in Carolina because the head coach there didn't like him getting all the attention he was getting. It was kind of ridiculous that the guy got fired because they got rid of that coach the next season, quickly. He's now coaching Nebraska.
Yeah, Rule.
Yeah, Matt Rule. I don't know. I think he's a good college coach, but he's not made for the NFL. But Joe Brady took over and probably just did what he was told because he likes being back in that chair. But as far as Ken Dorsey goes, I don't think the guy did a bad job in Buffalo at all. And if Stefanski lets him run things the way he wants, who knows? Maybe he'll be able to, help them some and take some of the pressure off of Stefanski. Because we were talking, it's so hard. You can't be a head coach and a coordinator at the same time unless you're just a freak with a giant brain.
Yeah, I admire these guys that do it, like with Reid. Even like just in game when your team's on defense and you have to, instead of like game plan on the offense, you still have to figure out what's going on the field, when to call timeouts and all that. Like in my mind, you would think the ideal situation is for head coach to be the head coach and to have a play caller. But I mean, it's not so uncommon that people don't. I know Ohio State kind of went down this now with Ryan Day, where he's been the play caller for as long as he's been head coach. And now this year he just said enough, it's just too much, especially in college with everything that goes on with that. He even said like when it's Wednesday night, I'm not really thinking about what play to call on 3rd and 6. I got so much other stuff going on. They just need to have a straight play caller. So I know we saw they brought in Bill O'Brien, who then resigned and took the job at Boston College as a head coach. And then the same day they get Chip Kelly from UCLA, which we've talked about. Seems like a lot of these college head coaches are just want to take lesser roles just so they don't have so much responsibility, so much on their plate. So, I mean, Chip Kelly, you think he could have he was a head coach at UCLA. He could have stayed there. He could have went to other places, but him stepping down a notch and being OC at Ohio State, which personally I love the hire. I think it's awesome to get him. He's another guy where Ohio State fans are kind of like, well, he's a has-been. What's he done lately? But obviously the guy is still a great offensive mind, and I don't think they could have. I would rather have him than Bill O'Brien personally.
Well, to put it in perspective, Chip Kelly took a $4 million pay cut to have a lesser role. Now he's going to one of the best programs in the country, and who knows, maybe he thinks he could get the job one day there. But to willingly take a $4 million pay cut to take a lesser role because the guy is probably spread so thin and burn out so bad, it tells a lot. And speaking of which, Steve Wilks, the defensive coordinator for the 49ers, was asked about that great play that Brandon Ayuk had when he caught that ball off the tip. And his exact words were, well, I didn't get to watch it, but I saw the replay, and that was an amazing play. Why? Because he's over talking to his defensive guys. So if you're a head coach and trying to do both, it's too much, man. It's just as a head coach, you have to be able to multitask. I get it, but why not take some pressure off of your shoulders? So hopefully that's what Stefanski does with Ken Dorsey. as they go into the 24-25 season.
Yeah,
All right.
about it. If that's what their plans are or not, I haven't heard a word. I mean, I was assuming that Fancy's still going to call plays, but I haven't heard any news on them.
Well, will be interesting to see. And anybody out there that still has a Ken Dorsey Browns jersey, you are officially allowed to break that sucker back out. The 3 or 4 of you that had held on to those things.
I thought you had San Francisco when he played out there for a year, didn't he?
Yeah, he was out there for a couple years. He's a backup for a couple years. Even back then, he was a great guy in practice. They say that he was great with the playbook and he was good with the younger guys. And he held on in the NFL for a long time, and I think that's why. And obviously, you can see he's grown as a coach because of that too. Okay, we're not going to delay this any longer. We're heading here just a couple of hours before Super Bowl kickoff. There is no system pick, unfortunately. Too close to call at -2. Too close to call at -2. So the system won't have a pick. But it did lean San Francisco pretty hard. It didn't give us the point of confidence that we need, unfortunately. If you want to play that, go for it. It is where the sharp money is on. But, that doesn't mean anything because sharps still lose money too.
Yeah, I've said throughout the show, I feel pretty good, actually. Like, it doesn't feel good, of course, going against Mahomes. Everybody you talk to, like, would you like Kansas City? Why? Everybody says, well, it's Mahomes, and it's Kelsey, and it's Reed, and you get it. But like I said, I think if this game would have took place round 1 of the playoffs and this matchup would have happened on a neutral field, San Francisco would have been much bigger favorites. There's no doubt about it. The shine is going to come off San Francisco, with particularly their defensive performances the last couple of weeks. Even Purdy looking a little shaky in the first half. I mean, he's got it together the second half, but even stretching back to that Baltimore game on Christmas looked a little shaky here and there. But I think just overall, San Francisco is the better team. I've been high on the 49ers all year, had a future on them to win the NFC, which cashed for me close, but thankfully. I think this line should be a little bit higher. So best bet of the week, I'll go ahead and make it. Like I always tell you, line shop with all the books that are available out there. Look around, get your best bet. These lines switch hourly even, so look around. You can get your money in and out easily. Find the best line. Go money line if you want, but I'm going -1.5. I'm just going to lay the points. I think if it's a real close game, it would favor more towards KC with the experience. I think San Francisco can, especially if they can get out to a lead early. It's going to be crucial to who's going to get off to the fast start. We don't want to see what happened with San Francisco last week where they got to come from behind. So as long as they can hang in, get off to a good start, feel pretty good. So outside of the betting perspective, as just a pure fan, what's your gut feel on how things are going to go today?
I think we lose.
Yeah, that's not surprising at all. Like that's usually your default. You're usually on the more pessimistic side with San Francisco in general.
Well, I've had, we've won 5 Super Bowls. We've been to a couple more, and you're probably right. Maybe I am too spoiled to know how good I've got it, because I'm sure Panthers fans and Jags fans and Browns fans, and these Lions fans, these teams are traditionally pretty bad, would love to have my plight, but I have seen it's almost worse to almost get there. And so since the mid-90s, the last time the 49ers won a Super Bowl, I've had nothing but heartbreak. And the heartbreak gets way worse when you get higher up. Okay, being 3-13, your heart's not broke, really. It just sucks. But fumbling a punt, you dropping an interception, throwing a bad pass in the fourth quarter on first down when you're inside the 10, fumbling the ball as you're running out the clock, those things hurt bad, man. So I think that Mahomes, the coaching factor, and the couple holes we have on defense might be enough to get this down to a Harrison Butker field goal at the end of the game, and we lose. Yeah,
I think just overall roster to roster, San Fran's play. Quarterback is just a big advantage for KC. I love Purdy, but I mean, of course, quarterback and just intangibles. I mean, intangibles lean everything KC. So I don't know. I feel pretty good about it, though. I do. I think San Francisco's much better than they've looked the last couple of weeks. I think there were some poor performances. Middle of the season, they were humming. Kansas City, middle of the season, they lost to the Raiders late in the year. I mean, they're not the team that they have been in the past. So that's what I'm rolling. Best bet, last one of the season, San Francisco -1.5.
Hey, if the 49ers haven't played a good game in a while, Kansas City hasn't played a bad one in a while, the law of averages sometimes equal out. So maybe this is the game San Francisco plays clean and KC doesn't, and San Francisco wins comfortably. I'd love to do that. I don't have my hopes up for it. So I'm laying all my clamshells on a KC win today. So if the 49ers win the Super Bowl, I'm happy. And if they lose, I at least got some money in my pocket.
And there you go. That's a classic thing to do there.
Well, everybody, that'll be it. This is the final show of the NFL season. I'm sure we'll have a recap show, maybe talking about everything that we talked about this year. And then we are going to try to get into that United Football League because the system that we have is set up for football. It's not set up for any other sport. And I've tried in the past. Maybe I'll try again to get this thing to work for another sport. And maybe we'll go branch out into other things. We do thank everybody who's been tuning in this whole time we've been doing this. It's been a couple of months now. It's been a lot of fun. We'll be back next year for the whole football season. And hopefully we can get things back to where we want them. In our show and our picks, we got winning records, but we're used to doing better than that. And things have been wonky in the NFL this season. So hopefully things will get even better and we can make you guys even more money next time.
Yeah, been a lot of fun. Definitely looking forward to it again.
All right, guys. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time.
YSN thanks you for watching this presentation of Your Sports Network. For